After covering Renee's complete meltdown after being broken up with by Chidi last week,
you know what? The problem is you. The problem is the human freaking race.
I thought we were all done with Renee. I thought there was no way that she's ever coming back on the show after such an incredible display. But it turns out I was wrong, because there is one more scene with Renee on this last episode where we finally see the end to this Renee nightmare.
You're gonna be nothing now but a bitch to me. Do you understand that?
So let's get into it. The episode starts off with Renee back in her hotel room as she shares with us her perspective on this whole situation. She says she realized at the beach that they're just talking in circles and they're not actually going to solve anything.
I realized that him and I are not going to get anywhere and we're just circling around.
Which I think most of us would agree with, that they're not getting anywhere. But Renee seems to think that that's all Chidi's fault, when it's pretty clear to all of us watching that I think the problem is a little bit more with Renee and her toxic and abusive attitude towards him, and her complete lack of willingness to have a mature conversation. She says she's sad, she's heartbroken, but that she can't believe that Chidi would be that stupid.
It broke my heart, it hurts me to death, but you can't be that stupid. Like, it's all been in front of your face.
The show cut away there, so I can't know exactly what she's referring to. But given what we've seen of her in the past, and whenever she talks about the truth, I'm guessing that she's referring to the evil family and how much they're getting in the way of their relationship.
Maybe he'll open his eyes big enough to see how much his family has really come between us.
It's amazing to me that even now, after their huge blow-up last episode, that Renee is still able to tell the camera with a straight face that she just can't believe how stupid Chidi is for not saying the truth. She yells and screams and insults and cusses at him all season long, and then when things continue to not work out, she's about to leave the country, her parting thoughts are, man, I so can't believe that he hasn't figured out the truth yet. Yeah, well, I guess the friends were right all along.
It's ironic. He's blind physically and she's blind emotionally. So yeah, we're concerned.
Renee then pivots to the other false narrative she has about this whole breakup, which is that Chidi must have just been using Renee all along for a visa.
I never felt before like he was using me. It's only this visit that I realized it must be a visa thing.
And her word choice is interesting. She's not saying, I wonder if Chidi loved me this whole time, or, wow, given everything recently, I'm starting to think that this may not have been as real as I thought. There's no sense of ambiguity here. When she says she's now realized that he's here for a visa, it makes it sound more conspiratorial, as if there's been some secret plan all along and she has now woken up to the reality of how things are. Which normally I probably wouldn't have even picked up on. But given what we know of Renee and her kind of conspiracy, paranoia kind of mindset,
UFOs, Illuminati, I believe I can show Chidi the truth.
I feel like her word choice here might suggest that she really does think that she's the protagonist that just found out the truth of how she's a victim. Like, the whole idea that this is a relationship that just didn't work out and had irreconcilable differences, that's all washed away with her. If she really believes that this was a conspiracy all along and she's now just woken up to it. You know what I mean? Am I making sense here? Anyway, let's move on.
Because he wasn't showing me anything else. Because why aren't you coming at me in a loving way? You know, show me you really love me.
And again, as has become tradition in these Renee videos, I have a hard time imagining a fellow human being saying that to me with this face and me not wetting myself over how scared I am.
Because why aren't you coming at me in a loving way? You know, show me you really love me.
It's always in the eyes. You can always tell. She says she feels misled and angry that she's been putting up with his games for so long.
I feel misled and angry that I've been putting up with his games for so long.
I have no idea what these games she's referring to are. Maybe it could be something that was off screen, but I'm just going to assume that that is a generic conspiratorial statement to support her claim that he was just using her for a visa. And therefore, all of his actions of affection and love just must have been playing games and not anything genuine. But after some more self-victimizing, Renee tells us that she texted Chidi this morning to tell him that she's leaving and going back to America. And apparently, Chidi responded with a request to meet up one last time to talk things out and get some closure.
But I texted him to tell him that I'm leaving, and all of a sudden he wanted to come see me, so he's on his way to the hotel right now.
And why? Why do they need to meet up? After all these conversations and fights? I don't know if this is some ploy just to get on the show one more time and make a little bit more money. I have no idea why they would want to meet up at this point. But the show then cuts to Chidi as he explains to us that when he was at the beach, he was completely unable to express any of his thoughts and feelings to Renee.
Renee couldn't allow me to express my thoughts and feelings.
And even adds that that was a perfect example of their relationship the past few years. Rayne completely bulldozing and talking over Chidi, and Chidi not being able to get a word in edgewise.
It was a perfect example of how our relationship has been for many years.
And because he's failed so miserably so far, he wants to meet up with Rayne one last time in the hotel lobby to finally express his feelings to Rayne and get his closure.
I must try one more time to speak my mind. I believe this is necessary in order for us to heal and to move on.
Kind of funny that they're both going into the conversation hoping for closure, but while it seems like Rayne is hoping for some sense of recognition from Chidi that maybe she was right about some things and maybe she doesn't have to think that Chidi is an evil visa abuser, while Chidi's idea of closure is just being heard for once in their relationship. Kinda says a lot about where the two of them are. The sister actually joins Chidi in going to the hotel to support him and also to keep him safe in case she freaks out and attacks him, which is a terrible situation to be in that you would have to go and act as a potential bodyguard. But unfortunately, from everything we've seen so far, can't say that it's not warranted. The sister goes outside to hide so that Rayne doesn't see her and flip out. And we hear from the sister that despite all this, she is also sad that Rayne has to leave this way. She feels bad that Rayne had to come all the way over to America to be here and that things didn't work out. But
I am so relieved that this chapter is over for Chidi, honestly. I am so proud of my brother for trying to be honest to Rayne and to be honest to himself too.
And I gotta say, this sister is really awesome. I'm sorry if in my previous videos I wasn't more clear in showing my support for the sister. The sister in every scene seems incredibly kind, supportive, wise, patient, and accommodating. And I'm totally on her side in everything she has said thus far about the situation. I've gotten the impression since pretty early on that the sister might not like Rayne, but that's only because I think nobody in that situation would like Rayne.
And if she started yelling, raising her voice, I will have to go in, but I hope it's going to be positive.
And now that Chidi and the sister are here, everything is set for the final confrontation between Rayne and Chidi. Rayne comes down, says hi to Chidi, and it's clearly very awkward.
Daughter, what you came to say now?
But before they get to talking, Chidi tells her that he brought her some presents.
Necklace and some earrings.
Rayne thinks this whole situation is a little weird, and thinks that this is just further proof that Chidi's playing games.
It's just him wanting to put on an image that he's not the bad guy. It's very manipulative.
And while I clearly don't agree with that perception from Rayne at all, I do have to say, that is weird. You guys just broke up the day before in pretty vicious fashion. Neither of you are trying to get back together, and I can understand if you want to communicate to this person that it's all water under the bridge and you don't have any qualms about them leaving and show that grace. But I think giving gifts in this context, it is kind of weird. Still, Rayne is handling this whole situation adequately so far. She's been polite. She said thank you for the gift.
Oh, thank you.
But is still quite reserved and emotionally distant, which I think is appropriate given the situation. But, as expected, that distance turns to hostility very quickly.
I'll miss you.
Yeah, 5.5 years. What a trip, huh? Fly all the way overseas. You don't even want to spend quality time at all.
Ah, there's the bitterness.
Babe, it's
I
well.
flew a long way and sacrificed a whole lot more than you'd ever imagine to be with you, right?
Off to a great start with him being able to express himself. She's already interrupting and talking over him. But also, of course, I don't know the personal details of whatever she's got going on in her life. But just wondering, what sacrifice is she really talking about?
Sacrifice a whole lot more than you'd ever imagine.
I mean, yeah, it's a long flight. Probably paid for by TLC, I'd imagine. She is taking time away from her kids, but is that all she's referring to? This amazing, ungodly sacrifice that you would never understand? I don't know about that. Kind of seems like she's just trying to make herself seem more like a martyr and more like Chidi is a villain. She then continues to bulldoze and pester him.
And what do you think's gonna happen now? Why are you doing this?
Chidi starts to talk and acknowledge that things haven't always been the best between them.
Things had gotten so bad and so messy that
When, of course, Rayne interrupts and insinuates it's all his fault.
Why do you make it so messy? I've never done anything to you but reach for you, love you, try to... Wait, let me finish.
The irony here. The total lack of self-awareness to be in the middle of a sentence where she paints herself as a total angel. I've only ever loved you and taken care of you, and conveniently forgetting all the times I interrupt you and I'm super toxic. Wait, are you interrupting me? No, let me finish. Like, that juxtaposition there was poetically hilarious to me.
No,
I'd like to know. I'd like to know.
No.
You're not just gonna claim that you never do anything wrong. You're also gonna then get mad at him for interrupting you while you try that bullshit. I mean, you couldn't write it better than that. And as things continue to unravel, Rayne asks him what could be so bad about her that makes him tear her down the way he does.
What is so bad about me that you have to put me down the way you do it?
Again, the lack of self-awareness here is staggering, but I'm also still so curious, what exactly is he doing that's putting her down so much? If he were to stop and ask her right now, wait a minute, when did I put you down? What exactly are you talking about? I want to know her answer. Because right after this question, she then gets mad about all of his dumb excuses for not wanting to be with her.
What is so bad about me that you have to put me down the way you do and come up with sour ass excuses as to why you couldn't even give me the freaking time of day?
Is that what she means by all of his tearing down? Just saying no? That would be completely ridiculous. Interpreting someone having their own boundaries as personally tearing down and hurting you. So I hope that's not what she meant. But the only other explanation I can think of is when Chidi tried to say last episode that she might have some problems that she needs to work on in relationships.
This kind of attitude, there is no way a relationship is going to be healthy.
We did a deep dive in that in my last video, so I'm not going to rehash all that. But while I don't agree at all that should be considered as tearing Rayne down, at least that's a better answer than the boundaries thing. Oh, and she calls him evil.
Freaking time of day. You're an evil person.
And at this point, if you're Chidi, it's about time to throw in the towel. You gave it the good old college try. You tried to come in with your best intentions. But, as Chidi says,
it seems Rayne is not capable of having a mature conversation.
And now that Chidi has lost his patience, he lets her have it by saying that the only time he's ever been happy in this relationship was when the two of them first met.
Let me tell you now, the only time I have ever enjoyed this relationship was when we newly met.
Which, as far as zingers go, it's okay. I give it maybe a 6 out of 10. But considering just how mild-mannered Chidi is, this is a 10 out of 10 for him. Rayne responds by calling Chidi the biggest scammer she's ever met.
You are the biggest scammer I've ever come across and one of the worst.
So I guess that's the narrative she's going with. And then starts getting in his face again.
You want to play me off for a freaking fool? Invite me all the way over here? You're going to be nothing now but a bitch to me. Do you understand that?
You're going to be nothing now but a bitch to me. Yeah, I don't really know what that means. She's clearly being super aggressive and toxic. I mean, this is total harassment. But as far as zingers go, that can't be any higher than a 2 out of 10 for me. But Rayne goes on and continues to try to paint Chidi as the immature one.
You don't even deserve this respect as a man. You learn to shut your mouth, okay?
Which, again, she brings up this weird gender thing. You don't deserve this respect as a man. For one, you've shown him zero respect. So I don't know what kind of respect he isn't getting that you think he doesn't deserve. But also, the gall to say that he needs to learn when to shut his mouth?
You learn to shut your mouth, okay?
I mean, wow. It's one thing for Rayne to say, hey, don't interrupt me when I'm talking and not realize that she's the biggest culprit of that. But to take it even further and say, you need to learn when to shut your mouth? Lady, I don't know how I could recommend her to buy a mirror anymore. Chidi continues to try to communicate with Rayne, try to de-escalate, figure something out, while she continues to talk over him, ignore him completely, as we've seen all season.
Yes, this is the reason. See,
I can't continue again.
I don't need to.
It's over.
Rayne sees the sister outside, possibly moving in at this point to save Chidi, and refers to her as his little babysitter.
And you take your stuff, you go home, your babysitter's right there.
Which, I gotta say, is not just generally annoying because of this stupid war that Rayne has with Chidi's sister, and is not just generally immature and disrespectful to dismiss a human being like that, but we also have to remember that Chidi's blind. he naturally needs help and would require someone to be around and guide him. So for her to dismiss the sister as your little babysitter, I'm hoping that Rayne was just meaning that in a I hate your sister and you're not a real man kind of way, which is a terrible way to see it. But that's still better than meaning that in a you're disabled and pathetic that you need a little babysitter. But both still very terrible. Rayne stands up in her ending monologue, condescendingly taps Chidi on the shoulder goodbye.
Have a good time. I love you. Bye.
Which Chidi clearly recoils in discomfort at. Can you imagine being in that situation with Rayne and her touching you at all? That would already make me feel very unsafe, but if I was blind and I wasn't prepared or ready for Rayne to touch me right then, I would freak out. That would be very scary to me. And Rayne storms off with her stuff back to her hotel room. The sister comes in to support Chidi and ask what happened, where Chidi says Rayne will always be Rayne.
Sorry, next standoff. What happened?
Rayne will always be Rayne.
And that things between them have come to an end.
Everything has come to a final end.
He tells us in a one-on-one that he was glad to finally admit to both her and himself that he was only ever happy in this relationship in the beginning. And he's realized now that he was really only happy about the relationship at that time because he was overwhelmed with the feeling of being loved and accepted for being blind. And now realizes that that doesn't mean that they were ever truly compatible.
I was so happy that she's not bothered about my condition. But the truth is that we are not compatible.
Which I think is very wise, and a great reminder for a lot of people out there to ask yourselves, are you into this person that you're into right now because you're actually compatible and have similar values and would make each other happy? Or is there something else going on that is tricking you into thinking that this is your person? Whether it be some kind of traumatic reenactment or lust or something that's getting you caught up in the moment. And Chidi finishes his thoughts by saying that although it didn't end the way he had hoped, he feels a lot of peace for having given it all he had, and believes that despite all of his frailties and weaknesses,
I believe that I will find someone that will love me, cherish me, hear me out, understand me, and accept me the way I am.
Which is beautiful to hear from someone that's dealt with a lot this season. And to contrast that, as the episode ends, we see Rayne crying in her hotel room, telling us how in love with him she was.
Everyone in my life knew how much I loved him, how much I wanted to do everything.
And as the scene ends, tells us that Chidi should have never led her on and never told her that he loved her.
He should have never led me on. He should have never told me. He should have never told me that he loved me.
Which I can't help but think poetically symbolizes the downfall of their relationship. Rayne lamenting about how pure and innocent her love for him was, while simultaneously rejecting even the possibility that Chidi might also be a fellow human being with feelings and emotions that may have loved and cared for her too, labeling herself as the ultimate martyr and not extending that same grace to Chidi, and instead labeling him as a villain who was just out to use her. And as I genuinely hope this is the last time we'll see Rayne and Chidi on this season, although it's all fun and games to react to a TV show and complain about just how crazy and ridiculous someone on TV looks, I don't want my 90-day shit-talking make anyone out there who ever gets triggered or ever acts out of place feel worse about themselves and less likely to go to therapy or to work on themselves. Rayne, the character on the TV show, seems to really suck and also seems to suffer from black and white thinking and have some other evidence of previous traumas. But that doesn't mean that everyone who has triggers or has previous traumas or suffers from black and white thinking also sucks. It doesn't mean that, and I hope that no one out there watching my videos has that takeaway. Anyway, that's all I got for today's video. Let me know what you thought about Chidi and Rayne in the comments down below. And tell me, do you think this is the last time we'll see them on this season? It certainly seems that way to me. Do you think that they're gonna be on the tell-all? Has there been any news on that? A big thank you to all of you channel members, with an extra special thank you to my producers, Nancy Jones and DL Chronister. If you'd like to see any of these videos early, as soon as I'm finished making them and not having to wait till Saturday morning, then consider becoming a channel member by hitting the join button below or the link in the description. And until next time, I'll see you later.